ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शांति शांति शांतिः. Namaskar my dear friends, this is video number 45 on talks with Ramana Maharshi. This video starts with talk number 583. Mr. V. Ganpati Sastri showed Sri Bhagwan a letter from a Spanish lady, Mercedes de Acosta, saying she would be coming here the next day. Sri Bhagwan remarked, "See the trouble to so many because I am here." 23rd November 1938, Reminiscence, Talk 584. A certain visitor began to pull the pankha. Sri Bhagwan said, "Because it is cold, they have placed fire by my side. Why should the pankha be pulled?" Then he continued, "On a cold morning when I was in Virupaksha cave, I was sitting in the open. I was feeling cold. People used to come see me and go back. A group of Andhra visitors had come. I did not notice what they were doing. They were behind me. Suddenly a noise, tuck, and water over my head. I shivered with cold. I looked back. They had broken a coconut and poured the water on me. They thought that it was worship. They took me for a stone image." Talk 580. Talk number 585. Sri Bhagwan said that this town is peculiar in that there are 9 roads leading to it, not counting the railroad. Nava Dware Pure Dehe, in the body, the city of 9 gates. Talk 586. An Andhra visitor asked, "How is one to be quiet? It is so difficult to be so. Should we practice yoga for it? Or is there any other means for it?" Maharshi, "What is not difficult looks difficult. A man is prone to wander about. He is told to stay quiet at home, but finds it difficult to do so because he wants to wander about." Devotee, is there any particular upasana which is more efficacious than others? Maharshi, all upasanas are equally efficacious, but each one takes easily to one kind of upasana which suits his previous vasanas. 24th November 1938, talk number 587. The Spanish lady and her lady friend have come. They asked, "You say the heart is on the right. Can you explain how it is so?" Sri Bhagwan handed over the extract from the psychological review of Philadelphia for her to read. He also added, "The heart is the place where from the I thought arises." Devotee, so you mean the spiritual heart as distinguished from the physical heart? Maharshi, yes, it is explained in chapter 5 of Sri Ramana Gita. Devotee, is there any stage when one might feel the heart? Maharshi, it is within the experience of everyone. Everyone touches the right side of his chest when he says "I." Both the ladies kneeled before Sri Bhagwan one after another and asked for blessings. Then they left for Pondicherry on their way to Colombo. 25th November 1938, talk number 588. To an Andhra seeker, Sri Bhagwan said, Sannyasa is mentioned for one who is fit. It consists in renunciation not of material objects but of attachment to them. Sannyasa can be practiced by anyone, even at home, only one must be fit for it. Again, a Kutichaka is one who takes sannyasa and lives in a hermitage. A Bahudhaka is one who takes sannyasa and goes to places of pilgrimage. A Hansa is an Upasaka sannyasi. A Pramhansa is a realized sannyasi. 27th November 1938, talk number 589. Soma Sundara Swami, a long-standing devotee, asked, there is Akasa in a mirror and it reflects images. How are these contained in the mirror? Maharshi, objects remain in space. Objects and space are together reflected in the mirror. Just as the things are found in space, so they are in the reflection also. The mirror is itself thin. How can these objects be contained in its compass? Devotee, how does the Akasa in a pot illustrate this point? Mercy, there is no reflection in the Akasa of the pot. The reflection is only in the water in it. Keeping several pots filled with water in a tank, the Akasa is reflected equally in the water in each of the pots and in the water of the tank. Similarly, the whole universe is reflected in each individual. Devotee, the mouths of the pots must be above the surface of the water in the tank. Maharshi, yes, it must be so. Otherwise, can the pots be recognized if sunk in the tank? Devotee, how does the reflection takes place there? Maharshi, pure ether cannot take reflections. Only the ether of water can do so. Glass cannot reflect objects. Only a plate of glass with an opaque lining on its back can reflect the objects in front of it. Similarly, pure knowledge does not contain objects in it nor reflect objects. Only with the limiting adjunct, the mind, it reflects the world. Neither in samadhi nor in deep sleep does the world remain. There cannot be illusion either in bright light or in total darkness. Only in dim light a rope seems a snake. Similarly, pure consciousness remains light only. It is pure knowledge. The mind rising from it is deluded that the objects remain apart. Devotee, so then the mind is the mirror. Mercy, mind what it is. It is a mixture of chit, intelligence and sankalpas, thoughts. Therefore it forms all these, the mirror, light, darkness and the reflections. Devotee, but I do not see it. Maharshi, Chidakasa, Chit ether is pure knowledge only. It is the source of mind. Just at the moment of rising up, the mind is only light. Only afterwards the thought I am this rises up. This I thought forms the jiva and the world. The first light is the pure mind, the mind ether or Isvara. Its modes manifest as objects because it contains all these objects within itself is called the mind ether. Why ether? Like ether containing objects, it contains the thoughts, therefore it is the mind ether. Again, just as the physical ether through accommodating all the gross objects, the whole universe is itself the content of the mind ether, so also the latter is itself the content of the chit ether. The last one is chit itself. Therefore, there are no things contained in it. It remains as pure knowledge only. Devotee, why call it ether? Physical ether is not sentient. Maharshi, ether denotes not only the insentient physical ether but also pure knowledge. Knowledge does not consist in knowing objects. This is relative knowledge, but knowledge in its purity remains all alone one unique transcendent light. Devotee, well, should we be imagining it in our meditation? Mercy, why imagine? We can think of another only if we are independent of it. Whereas here we cannot remain independent of this pure knowledge, rather only it is. How can it be imagined to be so and so or such and such? Devotee, how are we to proceed? Mercy, only get rid of the non-self. Devotee, it looks all right now, but later it is all forgotten. Maharshi, your forgetfulness implies knowledge, for you know you forgot. Otherwise, how can you speak of forgetting it? So, forgetfulness also is chit akasa, chit ether only. Devotee, how then is it not clear to me? Maharshi, Chit is knowledge pure and simple. The mind proceeds from it. The mind is made up of thoughts, darkness, or ignorance interposing. Pure knowledge seems different from what it is, what really is. The same is seen as I and the world, which are full of desire, attachment, hatred, etc. Therefore, desire, etc. are said to be veil the reality. Devotee, how to be rid of thoughts? Is it as said in the Atma Vidya, the eye of the mental eye, etc.? Maharshi. There the mind stands for ether, being Sat, and the eye for knowledge, Chit. Both Sat and Chit together form the universe. Devotee, how to realize the same? Maharshi, as pointed out in the Atma Vidya, being the eye of the mental eye, the ether of the mental ether, meaning the knowledge behind the relative knowledge, the chit ether containing the mental ether remains as the only one always shining bright. Devotee, still I do not understand. How shall I realize it? Maharshi, it is also said, remain free from thoughts, and it is realized only in the mind drawn within. Therefore, the mind made free from thoughts and the merged in the heart is Chit itself. Devotee, is the aforesaid mental ether Iswara or Hirane Garbha? Mercy, can the latter remain independent of the former? The same is Iswara and Hiranyagarbha. Devotee, how do they differ from each other? Maharshi, the immanent being is called Iswara. Devotee, is not the immanent being Chit Akasa only? Maharshi, immanence can only be with Maya. It is the knowledge of being along with Maya. From this subtle conceit Hiranyagarbha, from the latter the gross conceit Virat, Chit Atma is pure being only. 13th December 1938, talk number 590. Two ladies, one Swiss and the other French, visited Maharshi. The younger of the ladies asked several questions, of which the most important was, Brahma is the same as Jiva. If the Jiva be under illusion, it amounts to saying that Brahma is under illusion. How is that possible? Maharshi, if Brahma be under illusion and wants disillusionment, let him raise the question. Talk number 591, 14th December 1938, talk number 591. Devotees, seekers who are in immediate proximity of the Master can get grace by darshana, sparshana, etc. Look, touch, etc. But how does one get the same grace when the person is at a distance? Maharshi, by yoga drishti, yogic look. Mr. Chopra, a Punjabi employed in Singapore, is on a visit here and raised a few questions. Devotee, what is the efficacy of the name? Sri Bhagwan read out the extract from the vision. It was a translation of Namdev's stanzas. Devotee, how does the name help realization? Maharshi, the original name is always going on spontaneously without any effort on the part of the individual. That name is Ahem, I. But when it becomes manifest, it manifests as Ahankara, the ego. The oral repetition of Nama leads one to mental repetition, which finally resolves itself in the eternal vibration. Devotee, but these are all mental or physical. Maharshi, the mind or the mouth cannot act without the self. Tukaram, the great Maharashtra saint, used to remain in Samadhi in the day and sing and dance at night with large crowds of people. He always used to utter the name of Sri Rama. Once he was answering calls of nature and also saying Ram Ram. An Orthodox priest was shocked at the unholy mention of the sacred name and so reprimanded him and ordered him to be silent when he answered calls of nature. Tukaram said, "All right," and remained mute. But at once there arose the name of Rama from every pore of Tukaram, and the priest was horrified by the din. He then prayed to Tukaram, restrictions are only for the common people and not for saints like you. Devotee. It is said that Sri Ramakrishna saw life in the image of Kali which he worshipped. Can it be true? Maharshi, the life was perceptible to Sri Ramakrishna and not to all. The vital force was due to himself. It was his own vital force which manifested as if it were outside and drew him in. Were the image full of life, it must have been found so by all. But everything is full of life, that is the fact. Many devotees have had experiences similar to those of Sri Ramakrishna. Devotee, how can there be life in stone? It is unconscious. Maharshi, the whole universe is full of life. You say the stone is unconscious. It is your self consciousness which now speaks of unconsciousness. When a person wants to see if there is an article in a dark room, he takes a lamp to look for it. The light is useful for detecting the presence and the absence of the thing. Consciousness is necessary for discovering if a thing is conscious or not. If a man remains in a dark room, one need not take a lamp to find him. If called, he answers. He does not require a lamp to announce his presence. Consciousness is the self shining. Now you say you were unconscious in sleep and self consciousness in wakeful state. Which is the reality? The reality must be continuous and eternal. Neither the unconsciousness nor the self consciousness of the present is the reality, but you admit your existence all through. The pure being is the reality, the others are mere associations. The pure being cannot be otherwise than consciousness, otherwise, you cannot say that you exist. Therefore, consciousness is the reality. When that consciousness associated with upadhis, you speak of self consciousness, unconsciousness, subconsciousness, superconsciousness, human consciousness, consciousness, tree consciousness, and so on. The unaltered common factor in all of them is consciousness. Therefore, the stone is as much unconscious as you are in sleep. Is that totally devoid of consciousness? Devotee, but a dog consciousness is different from my consciousness. I cannot read the Bible to the dog. The tree again does not move, whereas I move and act. Maharshi, call the tree a standing man and call the man a moving tree. An American gentleman who also took part in the conversation would not allow Sri Bhagwan to explain, and so it stopped here. Talk number 592. The Punjabi gentleman referred to the popular belief of a worm being metamorphosed to a wasp, Bharma Krita Nyaya, which Sri Bhagwan had mentioned to the ladies in the course of conversation yesterday. Sri Bhagwan recalled some interesting reminiscences. Number one, I had previously heard of this Bharma Kita Nyaya after I came to Tiruvannamalai when I was staying in Gurumurtham. I noticed a red wasp construct a hive in which it placed 5 or 6 grubs and then flew away. My curiosity was roused and I wanted to test the truth of the oft quoted Nyaya. I waited some days, maybe 10 days. I then tapped the hive, it broke, and here I found that all the 5 or 6 grubs had united together and taken the shape of a wasp, but it was white. Second, later when I was in Virupaksha cave, I saw a red wasp construct 5 or 6 hives in each of which it placed 5 or 6 grubs and flew away. After about 10 days, a black beetle smaller than the wasp buzzed around the hives and closed each of them with a little black mud and flew away. I was wondering at the instruction of the beetle on the hive of the wasp. I waited a few days and then gently opened one of the hives. 5 or 6 black bodies came out and each of them was a black beetle. I thought it strange. Third, again when I was in Pachaman temple, I saw a red wasp constructing 5 or 6 hives on a pillar in the temple. It placed 5 or 6 grubs in each of them and buzzed away. I watched it for several days. The wasp did not return. There was no black beetle also. After about 15 days, I opened one of the hives. All the grubs had united into a white mass of the wasp-like form. It dropped down and was stunned by the fall. After a few minutes, it began to crawl. Its color was gradually changing in a short time. There were two little specks on its sides which grew into a wing or as I watched, and the full grown wasp flew away from the ground. Fourth, when I was in the mango tree cave, I noticed a caterpillar-like worm crawl up a wall. It stopped in one place and fixed two spots which it later connected up with a thin filament from its body. It held the filament with its mouth and rested its tail and on the wall. It remained so several days. I was watching it. It shriveled up in course of time. I wondered if there was life in it, so I gently tickled it with a thin stalk. There was no life within. I left it there. But in a few days more, I found that there was only a thin, dry skin left behind, and the inner thing had flown away. Fifth, I had also seen the flies carrying tiny grubs on their legs which they deposited on a fall. The grub later flew away as flies. Devotee, they may be eggs laid by the flies. Mercy, but they move and struggle and then shape themselves as fly. Talk number 593. Sri Bhagwan mentioned another interesting reminiscence. When I was a boy, I had seen the fishermen divert water from its main course and keep a pot through which the diverted water flowed. The artificial way was spread with tobacco stems. Strangely enough, the larger fishes always took the new way and fell into the pot. The fishermen who were simply sitting quiet used to take the fish out from the pot and throw them into their baskets. I thought at the time it was strange. Later, when I was staying here, I heard some man recite a piece from Thyanu Manovar which mentioned the same trick of the fisherman. 15th December 1938, talk number 594. The Spanish lady, Madame Mercedes de Acosta, has written a letter to Mr. Haig, the American mining engineer who is here as a temporary resident for last 2 months. She has raised a few questions here. If the individual self merges into the universal self, how can one pray to God for the uplift of humanity? The question seems to be common among the thinkers of the West. Sri Bhagwan said they pray to God and finish with Thy will be done. If His will be done, why do they pray at all? It is true that the divine will prevails at all times and under all circumstances. The individual cannot act of their own accord, recognize the force of the divine will, and keep quiet. Each one is looked after by God. He has created all. You are one among 2,000 millions. When He looks after so many, will He omit you? Even common sense dictates that one should abide by His will. Again, there is no need to let Him know your needs. He knows He knows them Himself and will look after them. Still more, why do you pray? Because you are helpless yourself and you want the higher power to help you. Well, does not your creator and protector know your weakness? Should you parade your weakness in order to make him know it? devotee, but God helps those who helps themselves. Maharshi, certainly help yourself, and that is itself according to God's will. Every action is prompted by Him only. As for prayer for the sake of others, it looks so unselfish on the surface of it, but analyze the feeling and you will detect selfishness here also. You desire others' happiness so that you may be happy, or you want the credit for having interceded on others' behalf. God does not require an intermediary. Mind your business and all will be well. Devotee, does not God work His will through some chosen person? Maharshi, God is in all and works through all, but His presence is better recognized in purified minds. The pure ones reflect God's actions more clearly than the impure minds. Therefore, people say that they are the chosen ones, but the chosen man does not himself say so. If he thinks that he is the intermediary, then it is clear that he retains his individuality and that there is no complete surrender. Devotee, are not the Brahmins considered to be the priest or intermediaries between God and others? Maharshi, yes. But who is a Brahmin? A Brahmin is one who has realized Dharma. Such a one has no sense of individuality in him. He cannot think that he acts as an intermediary. Again, as for prayer, a realized man does not see others as different from oneself. How can he pray at all? And to whom and for what? His very presence is the consummation of happiness for all. So long as you think that there are others different from you, you pray for them, but the sense of separateness is ignorance. This ignorance is again the cause of feeling helplessness. You know that you are weak and helpless. How then can you help others? If you say by prayer to God, God knows His business and does not require your intercession for others. So, this video is completed. Thank you for watching this video. Next video number 46 will start with talk number 595. Thank you, my dear friends. Namaskar.